As global liquidity continues to explode, Bitcoin and the crypto markets are flat. But is that all about to change? Or are we absolutely boned? So if you understand that something big is about to happen, but also you understand maybe it won't, hit that like and subscribe. Get signed up with Femex or BITUNIX below. Using my link to Femex, you do not need KYC anymore. And without any further ado, let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin, where we see today, after a little move up yesterday, and potentially setting a double bottom over the past couple of weeks on February 27th, 28th, and just recently on about March 11th. Is the price of Bitcoin cooling off, resetting a lot of momentum before something big happens to the price for the first time in months? Because if we really do zoom back and look at the chart of Bitcoin, we spent, I believe it was like 8 months, or sorry, yeah, actually, no, it was 8 months. Yeah, like over half of 2024 trading sideways with a little bit of dumpiness. And now, since pretty much the end of 2024, the last month of 2024, until now, we've also been trading sideways, but with most recently receiving a little bit of a dump for Bitcoin. All the while, bigger things have been happening, specifically global liquidity. Global liquidity has been rising. Which absolutely has been a massive warning indicator or predictive indicator for not only Bitcoin, but also risk markets in general. Absolutely. I think this is probably the most important single metric to be watching, but I also think it's important to just straight up say that I don't think we're going to be seeing any sort of upside movement for Bitcoin, any sort of pump, until this global liquidity lag gets reconciled, meaning we see this liquidity start flowing back in, and then Bitcoin eventually follows, according to this chart by Mr. Crypto on X, about a 105-day offset or lag between this. I don't think we will see a pump until at least then. So in my opinion, I think the earliest we actually see a move back up to $100,000 per Bitcoin is towards the beginning of April, which is also the second quarter, the beginning of the second quarter of 2025. And so realistically, I don't necessarily think there's a high chance at all that we'll be seeing any sort of pumpy price action, true pumpy price action for Bitcoin for at least the next like 10 days, about a week and a half or so. That's just my opinion. Could it happen? Of course. Could we go up? Could we go right? I'm not saying that I'm absolutely correct. I just personally don't see even a chance for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market to have like a really massive pump for at least probably, I mean, let's be a little realistic, maybe like at least another 2 weeks. And so you might not want to hear that, or you might want to hear that, right? Depending on what your strategy is, if you just want to buy in and you're confident that this is going to go a lot higher. But realistically, again, I personally think that at the least, coming back up to this range right here, so right about 100,000 US dollars, or about $97,000 or $98,000 per Bitcoin, right in the middle of this range that we spent the last couple of months trading in between, getting back into the middle of this range. I don't think that we really have a chance of getting back up there until about the beginning of April at the earliest. So if you're expecting a pump tomorrow, which again, I personally don't think most people are. I personally think that most people are actually kind of bearish on this market. I think a lot of people are not super optimistic on the price in the short term. In fact, over just the last week, I've seen more and more people and influencers and bigger accounts on X and YouTube actually flip not only to bearish, but straight up now a lot of people are saying that we're in a bear market. A lot of these bigger accounts also are now saying we're in a bear market. What's my opinion on that? Could we be? Absolutely. I don't think it's guaranteed. I'm not saying that I have a strong opinion one way or the other. But I personally think my actual opinion is that we're going to see the market pick up once liquidity, as I just showed this, once liquidity, the time before this liquidity actually like translates to risk on assets in Bitcoin. We're not going to see pumpy price action until that happens. But also when it does happen, it's going to happen extremely fast, meaning whatever happens in the short term, whether we continue to trade sideways or more with a dumpy trend, I think that when the pump actually does come, again, it's going to be very fast. A lot of people are going to get caught off guard. I just said, for example, that I don't think that for at least the next 2 weeks we really have a chance of pumping. Maybe I'll be wrong, and we'll just have a flash pump tomorrow, right, and come back to about 100K or so. But I personally think that the biggest factors right now are global liquidity, and as well when the Fed starts printing money. Now, we had the FOMC meeting yesterday, and it seems like they are leaning a bit more dovish, right? For example, this post highlighted here, the committee will continue reducing its holdings of Treasury securities and agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities beginning in April. This is the key point of why I also said the next 2 weeks, beginning of April, beginning of Q2. The committee will slow the pace of decline of its securities holdings by reducing monthly redemption cap on Treasury securities from $25 billion to just $5 billion, basically indicating that, again, we're getting closer and closer to the Fed printing money. And that is exactly what ushered in the massive pumping we saw in the last bull market. We haven't seen it yet in this bull market. We have not seen any money printing. It has been quantitative tightening. It has been very restrictive monetary policy so far the last couple of years. So this current bull market or bear market, whatever you consider we're in right now, we have not seen any money printing. In fact, as I just said, the opposite. And seeing money printing will absolutely kickstart this market into much more pumpiness. It's just a matter of when will we get that. As well, the tariffs are set to, the reciprocal tariffs are set to begin, I believe, April 2nd. So this all is lining up. The first week of April is where I think we're going to start seeing fireworks. And volatility. The bigger thing is that I think we're going to see a lot of volatility around the beginning of Q2 2025 in just about a week and a half or so. Until then, I personally don't expect there to be much exciting price action. So you can kind of get your ducks in a row in the meantime, in my opinion. We're also seeing that Bitcoin's total market cap is still less than 1% of US household assets. You can see this little blip down here is how much Bitcoin's market cap is versus the trillions of dollars in US household assets alone. We're just talking about the US, not the entire world, just the US. Meaning that if we actually see real adoption of Bitcoin, we have so much growth left, but it is really a matter of at this time, because again, I'm talking about all this and it's more short term. If we zoom out 5-10 years, I expect Bitcoin to be worth millions of dollars. But I'm making a video today, and I don't think most people watching care what the price of Bitcoin is going to be in 5 or 10 years, because they want to know what's most likely to happen in the very short term, like over the next couple of weeks, right? And so with that, really, things could get really exciting in the next few weeks. Things could get very pumpy in the next few weeks if, again, we start to see Bitcoin and risk assets react more to this massive increase in liquidity, which is a good sign. But predicting exactly when that's going to translate into a pump for Bitcoin or the stock market or risk on assets is a little bit harder, right? There's about a 105-day asset according to some data, but it's still not like an exact science to predict that. But more so as well, when the Fed starts printing money, and as well with these reciprocal tariffs, if they all either get applied or these countries with the US included agree to maybe drop their tariffs, then we could see the market just pump like that. It really is one of these situations where this is a manufactured dump, meaning the current administration is intentionally trying to bring this down, right? So at any moment, they could change that and this market could go bananas. But in the meantime, at least, so what we're seeing still is that, and this is another good sign we saw from the Fed, that most likely, again, they're dovish, but most likely they are going to be printing money sometime in the near future. And when that happens, Bitcoin is extremely likely, along with risk assets, to be going up because of that. As well, if we look at a chart by Crypto Goo on X, this is about a 1,000-day period here, and here, where there's consolidation before it moves up. Right on the verge, potentially, of seeing that, and Mr. Crypto highlighting something similar here of roughly about 150 days in these upward channels before having these massive parabolas blow off top type situations. So again, it's not guaranteed we're going to get it, but it is a lot of things have lined up, and really people are extremely bearish. This market is extremely boring. People are losing interest. You can see it in a lot of metrics. But again, that is always how, at least in my experience over the last 8 years, that is exactly when, that's what allows these types of moves to happen, okay? Because as you can see right here, this parabolic move, for example, I was in the markets during this time. Before this happened, you didn't have everybody on the planet saying Bitcoin's about to explode. You didn't. Actually, specifically back here, crypto and Bitcoin, everything was extremely niche. Like it was very, most people didn't even know about it back then. I know my parents didn't know about it. My friends didn't even know about Bitcoin, right? So we're talking about like almost a decade ago, back in 2017. But yeah, basically the only people that were ready for this were people that, it was a very, very, very small percent of the population. It was different in the last bull market. And now especially, Bitcoin is I would say most people on the planet have at least heard of Bitcoin, right? Like anybody with access to a computer has probably heard about Bitcoin. Not invested in it, but most people have heard about it. However, even though most people have heard about it, is everyone bullish on Bitcoin right now? No. As indicated by the last few weeks, the fear and greed index is at the most fearful levels since back in the bottom of the bear market. So people overall are not like excited about Bitcoin. People are thinking it's done, right? As I just said, influencers now over the past week are telling us for the first time in weeks that, hey, we're actually in another bear market for a couple of years potentially. And there's just no shot that we're going back up. So before we get these massive moves, that is exactly the type of climate that's necessary. You don't get these type of parabolic moves like this when everybody is expecting it to pump. And let's be honest, most people are not expecting it to pump right now. And as I just said, I don't think we're going to pump in the next 2 weeks. Or before the next 2 weeks. I think maybe at the earliest, early April is the earliest we have a chance of doing it. But overall, yeah, the sentiment is shot. Altcoins are shot. People are very depressed on this market. And specifically, you look at something like even the stock market, the SPX, sitting right now on its 50-week moving average down here, roughly, I believe, like maybe 10, 15% or so from, or maybe about like almost 10% from its all-time highs. The first visit to this level since back in October of 2023, well over a year ago. Even the stock market, risk assets, the sentiment is not great right now, and people are fearful that we're entering a very long, prolonged, like bearish trajectory for these risk assets. But again, we can see it flip like this if and when, one, global liquidity, we start seeing it reflected in the price of Bitcoin and risk assets, but also when the Fed starts printing money, which is unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the cycle that we're trapped in now, stagflation or whatever you want to call it, a debt spiral, pretty much. This debt is unsustainable, tens of trillions of dollars of debt for the US alone. And it will unwind eventually. And it's a constant back and forth of quantitative tightening and quantitative easing perpetually. So, but over the last couple of months, we've gotten the strongest indications yet that we're actually going to be shifting more into quantitative easing. Considering the last few years, it has been quantitative tightening, really since the beginning of 2022 or so. But that lends itself a really good opportunity for Bitcoin to have its first Fed-fueled pump of this entire cycle. We have not had a Fed-fueled pump at all yet this cycle. But now we're closer than ever actually to seeing that realized. I can get signed up with FEMX or BITUNIX below for my Bitcoin altcoins or trade. No KYC required if you use the link to FEMX below. Without further ado,